It was the kind of night where destiny felt close enough to touch, yet just out of reach. I had to find her. Again, the city breathed in frigid gusts, swirling snowflakes into a blinding ballet, a chaotic dance that mirrored the turmoil within me. I clutched the warm book tighter, its familiar weight a small anchor in this storm of doubt and desperation. It was more than just paper and ink. It was a relic of a moment, a ghost of a chance encounter, a tangible piece of the past I was so foolishly, so stubbornly trying to resurrect. My bookstore, a haven of quiet dust and forgotten stories, felt a lifetime away. The rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock in the corner, usually a soothing lullaby, now echoed in my mind as a relentless countdown, each second marking the fading possibility of rewriting a history already written. Evenings there were spent meticulously arranging shelves, a futile attempt to impose order on the unyielding chaos of my inner world. Rows of spines became silent witnesses to unspoken words, to the weight of missed opportunities. Each night, the same regret, the same burning question. What if? It gnawed at me, a relentless whisper in the quiet hours, a constant reminder of the vibrant young woman who had graced this very platform years ago. Anna, though, for all I knew, that wasn't her name. That was just the name my hope had whispered to my heart. The memory surfaced in hazy fragments, the curve of her smile, the vibrant spark in her eyes, the way her laughter danced on the wind like the chimes of a distant cathedral. A fleeting encounter, a moment suspended in time, a stark contrast to the solitary grayscale of my present existence. That laugh, I could almost hear it carried on this biting wind. The train's distant rumble grew closer, an iron beast awakening from its slumber. A wave of icy dread washed over me, a cold premonition that threatened to paralyze me in place. I pushed forward, the book digging into my chest, a physical manifestation of the hope I refused to relinquish. People brushed past me, faces blurred. In the twilight, each a fleeting glimpse into lives lived, decisions made, paths chosen. Lives I could have led, a weary businessman, his shoulders slumped with the weight of responsibility. A young couple locked in a hushed, intense argument, their love a fragile flame flickering in the wind. A street musician hunched over his worn guitar, plucking a melancholic tune that resonated deep within my soul. They were all living their stories, while I was stuck reliving mine. The train groaned as it approached, its massive form casting long, distorted shadows that danced across the snow-covered platform. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat urging me forward. Had I imagined her? Was Anna just a phantom, a figment of my longing, a desperate attempt to fill the void in my life? Was I chasing a dream, or merely a ghost? Doubt crept in, insidious and cold, whispering insidious lies in my ear. Maybe she wasn't real. Maybe it was just a trick of the light, a fleeting moment of beauty that my mind had embellished over the years. The rational part of me, the part that had spent years meticulously cataloging books and carefully avoiding risk, urged me to turn back, to retreat into the safety of my predictable routine. The station announcer's voice crackled over the loudspeaker, declaring the final boarding call. Panic seized me, a desperate, suffocating wave that threatened to drown me. I scanned the crowd, my eyes darting from face to face, searching for any sign, any flicker of recognition, any echo of the memory that had haunted me for so long. Then, a glimmer, a splash of color in the monochrome landscape. In a moment of desperate clarity, I spotted a woman standing near the edge of the platform. From a distance, she resembled Anna. Something in her posture, the way she held her head, the way the wind seemed to caress her hair. "Anna," I shouted, my voice cracking with a mixture of hope and despair. The sound was swallowed by the roar of the approaching train, but I didn't care. I had to try. I had to know. The woman turned. It wasn't her. The realization hit me like a physical blow, a crushing weight that threatened to buckle my knees. Disappointment washed over me, a bitter wave that threatened to extinguish the last embers of hope. Was this it? Was this the end of the chase? Was I destined to live with this regret forever? But then, in the periphery, something caught my eye. A small, hand-painted postcard lying on the ground, partially buried in the snow. I bent down and picked it up, my fingers trembling. It depicted the Charles Bridge, its ancient stones dusted with snow, the iconic towers silhouetted against the twilight sky, the same postcard Anna had held on that fateful day. A renewed surge of hope coursed through me, a spark igniting in the darkness. It was a sign, a breadcrumb, a tangible indication that I was on the right track. The train hissed to a halt, its doors opening with a sigh. But where did this postcard come from? Something was here, a truth just out of grasp. It was the kind of night where destiny felt close enough to touch, yet just out of reach. I had to find her, again, but the platform wasn't where my search began. No, it started amidst the hushed stillness of my bookstore, a sanctuary of paper and ink, a mausoleum of unspoken words. The rhythmic tick of the grandfather clock in the corner, a relentless metronome counting down the seconds of a life half-lived, a life filled with the ghosts of possibilities. Evenings bled into nights, each indistinguishable from the last. Dust motes danced in the pale lamplight, illuminating the forgotten corners of my existence. I'd rearrange the shelves, a futile exercise in imposing order on the chaos within. First editions nestled beside dog-eared paperbacks, a silent commentary on the fleeting nature of beauty, the inevitable decay of even the grandest narratives. I'd run my fingers along the spines, the leather worn smooth by countless hands, each book a portal to a world I only dared visit in my imagination. I yearned to be a character in those stories, to experience love and adventure, to escape the suffocating silence of my own making, but I was no hero. I was just Elijah, the lonely bookstore owner, haunted by the echo of what could have been. Regret was my constant companion, a shadow clinging to my heels, whispering reminders of chances missed, of words left unsaid. Like the day she walked into the bookstore, Anna, even her name tasted like a forgotten melody on my tongue. The memory flickered, fragmented, like an old film reel, projected onto the dusty screen of my mind. A brief, incandescent moment on this very platform years ago. A splash of color in the monochrome landscape of my life. Her laughter, like wind chimes in a summer breeze, still echoed in my ears, a stark counterpoint to the mournful silence that usually enveloped me. We spoke briefly about books, about dreams, about the bittersweet beauty of Prague in winter. I remember the way the snow sparkled in her hair, the warmth in her eyes that seemed to melt the ice around my heart. She held a hand-painted postcard of the Charles Bridge. I remember thinking that she was more beautiful than the bridge itself. Then, the train arrived, a mechanical beast belching smoke and steam, demanding its due, and she was gone, vanished into the swirling snow, leaving behind only the faintest trace of perfume and a gaping hole in my carefully constructed solitude. I watched her go, paralyzed by indecision, by the fear of rejection, by the crushing weight of my own inadequacies. I hadn't even asked her name. Years had passed since that fateful encounter. Years spent replaying that moment in my mind, dissecting every word, every gesture, searching for clues, for signs that she felt it too. Was it real, or simply a figment of my imagination? A desperate attempt to rewrite the narrative of my life? Sometimes I would stare out the window of my bookstore, half expecting her to walk by, a specter in a vibrant coat of red. But she never did. Now, here I was again, on this same snow-covered platform, the air thick with the scent of diesel and desperation. The train was coming. The chance I thought I'd squandered years ago was somehow within reach again, an improbable second act. In a play I never thought I'd have the courage to write, but was this courage? Or was this just another form of madness? A delusion fueled by loneliness and regret? Was I chasing a ghost, a phantom limb of a life I never truly lived? Or was Anna, the woman on this platform, truly the key? The clock tower in the distance chimed, each reverberation a hammer blow against the walls of my resolve. Time was running out. It always does. And this time, I didn't just have a name to get. I had everything to lose. Because what happens if you find what you are looking for? More importantly, what happens when you do not? The train. I could hear it in the distance. It was close, and my breath caught in my throat, the air growing thin. The wind picked up on the platform. It was now or never, but what if she was never here at all? The whistle screamed again, a metal shriek that tore through the twilight and echoed the rising panic in my chest. Each blast was a hammer blow, forging my anxiety into something sharp and dangerous. The platform blurred. Faces swam past, each a fleeting portrait in the fading light. A businessman, his face etched with the grim lines of a life spent chasing shadows. A young couple, their voices rising in a bitter duet, their love already fraying at the edges. And a lone musician, hunched over a battered violin, drawing out a melody that was all lost hopes and whispered regrets, the kind that clings to the cobblestones of Prague like the winter frost. They were ghosts of possibilities, wraiths of the lives I could have lived, the choices I could have made, each one a painful reminder of the path I hadn't taken. Had Anna taken a similar path? Was she even real? The thought clawed at me, a venomous whisper in the back of my mind. Years I'd clung to a memory, a fragment of a dream. Had I conjured her from the depths of my loneliness, sculpted her face from the dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun of my bookstore? Was she just a phantom limb, a phantom love, a desperate fiction to fill the gaping hole in my soul? The platform lights seemed to mock me, their harsh glare illuminating only the emptiness around me. Doubt, cold and insidious, began to seep into the marrow of my bones. It twisted my gut, making me question everything. The way she had looked at me, the shared laugh, the fleeting touch of her hand as she gave me the postcard. Had I imagined it all? Had I built a cathedral of longing on a foundation of nothing? Maybe she was never here. Maybe I was simply insane, a madman chasing shadows in a snowstorm, destined to forever wander the platform of my own unfulfilled desires. The announcer's voice, amplified and distorted, cut through the swirling chaos, declaring the final boarding call. The words slammed into me like a physical blow, each syllable a nail hammered into the coffin of my hopes. This was it, the last chance, the moment of truth, the precipice between dreams and oblivion. I surged forward, pushing through the throng of travelers, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I scanned every face, every silhouette, every fleeting glimpse of color in the gathering gloom. A woman with hair the color of moonlight, a figure draped in a scarlet scarf, a shadow that moved with a familiar grace. Each possibility flared for a heartbeat, only to be extinguished by the cruel reality that it wasn't her. Not her, never her. The train loomed now, a metal behemoth exhaling plumes of steam and desperation. Its doors yawned open, swallowing passengers whole, each disappearing figure a symbol of my own fading hope. This infernal machine, this iron horse of fate, was about to carry her away again, perhaps forever, leaving me stranded in the desolate landscape of my regret, my breath hitched in my throat. I stumbled, nearly falling, the weight of years pressing down on me. The faces around me swam in a dizzying kaleidoscope of indifference. No one saw my desperation. No one cared about my lost love. I was invisible, a ghost haunting the edges of their lives. And the train was pulling away. The first lurch, a tremor that ran through the platform and into my very soul. The wheels screamed against the tracks, a mournful cry that echoed the agony in my heart. It was leaving, she was leaving, and I was left behind, stranded in the swirling snow, with nothing but the ghost of a memory and the crushing weight of my own failure. Had I been wrong? Was this a fool's errand? Was she truly gone, beyond my reach, a figment of my imagination? Or was there still a sliver, a glimmer, a fragile thread of hope to cling to? The train picked up speed, its lights blurring into streaks of gold against the deepening blue of the Prague night. Then, in that moment of utter despair, something caught my eye, a flicker of color amidst the monochrome landscape, a beacon in the darkness. Something that made my heart leap in my chest and sent a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. A sign, perhaps, that I wasn't entirely lost after all. But what did it mean? And could I reach it in time before the last echo of the train faded into the night? Hope is a cruel mistress, isn't it? She dangles a shimmering illusion just out of reach, a mirage in the desert of your despair. And for a moment, just a fleeting, heart-stopping moment, I thought I saw her. There, amidst the swirling coats and hurried footsteps, a woman turned, her profile catching the fading light. Anna? The name tore from my throat, a ragged plea lost in the station's clamor. The word hung in the air, cracking open with years of unsaid emotions, but it wasn't her. The disappointment hit me like a physical blow, a tidal wave of grief threatening to drown me in the icy waters of regret. The breath hitched in my chest, a painful reminder of the countless breaths I'd wasted, the silent years I'd allowed to slip away. It wasn't her face in the crowd, but just another stranger, like me, making her own way to somewhere, perhaps, to her own hopes, her own dreams. This Prague, this beautiful, tragic city, was suddenly the scene of a crime I had committed against myself, the platform blurred, the lights of the approaching train distorting into hazy halos. It was over. It had to be. The universe was mocking me, revealing the futility of my quest, the absurdity of clinging to a ghost. I wanted to fall to my knees, bury my face in the snow, and let the relentless wind carry my sorrow away. Let it take the ashes of my hopes, scatter them across the Vltava, and let me be done with the past. I wanted to let the river take my years with it and wash them away into the sea. And then I saw it, a splash of color amidst the monochrome, a small rectangle of defiance against the gray apathy of the station. It was clutched loosely in the hand of a young woman hurrying past, a simple, hand-painted postcard. And on it, rendered in vibrant, almost childlike strokes, was the unmistakable silhouette of the Charles Bridge, with its stoic statues and timeless grace. The bridge Anna held that day, the postcard. A jolt of electricity surged through me, banishing the creeping despair. It was a sign, a breadcrumb in the darkness, a whisper in the deafening silence of my self-doubt. The world swam back into focus, the station's noise resolving into a symphony of possibilities. The train, with its relentless approach, no longer felt like a harbinger of doom but a challenge to meet. It couldn't be a coincidence. Not after all this. Not after years of haunting, of sleepless nights, of chasing shadows. This was more than chance. This was destiny, beckoning me forward. It felt like the hand of the universe was no longer pushing me to my grave but was now extended for me to take. The woman was gone, swallowed by the throng of travelers. But the image of the postcard burned in my mind, a beacon guiding me through the chaos. The bridge, her bridge, was a key, a riddle, a promise. I just had to solve it. I had to. A new urgency seized me, pushing aside the weariness and the self-pity. My steps quickened, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. The train screamed its imminent arrival, a deafening roar that only amplified the frantic beating of my heart. I scanned the crowd, my eyes darting from face to face, searching for any other clue, any other connection to that fleeting encounter years ago. Was this madness? Perhaps, but in this moment, madness felt like the only sane response. To give up, now, to surrender to the crushing weight of reality, would be to betray myself, to deny the flicker of hope that still burned within me. This hunt was something I had to see through, to find an answer to the questions that have been burning within me. The image of the postcard was burned into my brain. The Charles Bridge, under a bright blue sky, a postcard, a bridge. Someone, somewhere, must know something. She must have left more traces than just her face in my memory. I scanned the crowd one more time, and there he was, a lone figure huddled near the edge of the platform, his fingers dancing over the strings of a worn guitar. The melody he played was hauntingly familiar, a melancholic tune that tugged at the edges of my memory. The music echoed back to me from deep within, from my past, the song. It was the song Anna hummed that day on the platform, the day we met. He played on, oblivious to the chaos around him, lost in his own world of notes and chords. But I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep in my bones, that he held a piece of the puzzle, this musician, this song. Anna, I approached him, my heart pounding in my chest, each step a desperate gamble. This man, a simple busker on a cold train platform, might be the only thing standing between me and the abyss of regret, but could he hold the truth? And what would that truth reveal? The postcard, a flimsy bridge across the chasm of years, had led me here, to this corner, shrouded in shadow, where a lone musician coaxed a melody from his worn guitar, a melody that burrowed into my soul, a haunting echo from a forgotten dream. It was her song, Anna's song, the one she hummed that day amidst the swirling snow, a lifetime ago. Hope, fragile as spun glass, flickered within me. I lingered unseen, unheard, as the last notes faded into the twilight. He looked up, his eyes old and knowing, as if he'd been expecting me. He spoke of her, this phantom limb of my past. He said she lived nearby, in one of those ancient buildings that seemed to breathe stories. He said she often asked about the bookstore owner who visited the platform years before. A flicker of recognition, a ghost of a memory, had survived in her too. My heart surged, a tidal wave threatening to drown years of regret. She remembered. She hadn't forgotten. The possibility, so long dormant, blossomed anew, painting the bleak landscape of my life in vibrant hues. Perhaps, just perhaps, the years of solitude were about to end. Perhaps fate, after all this time, was finally offering me a second chance. But then, the musician's words shifted, a subtle change in tone that sent a chill through my already frozen veins. He spoke of her travels, of her work, a selfless calling, a life dedicated to healing and helping in places where hope was a luxury. Doctors Without Borders. Her laughter, once a melody in my memory, now echoed with the faraway cries of children, the desperate pleas of the forgotten. And then, the final twist of the knife. He mentioned her husband, a name unfamiliar and sharp that shattered the fragile image I had so carefully constructed. A husband waiting, a life already intertwined. The train station lights seemed to dim, casting long, accusing shadows that mirrored the darkness spreading within me. He gestured towards the approaching train, its iron wheels grinding against the tracks, a relentless rhythm counting down the seconds to my ultimate defeat. "She's leaving tonight," he said, his voice soft with a pity I didn't want, with her husband. "They're going to Africa, Africa. A world away, a life beyond my reach, a future that would never include me." I turned, drawn by an invisible force. And there she was, Anna, still vibrant, still radiant, even more beautiful than I remembered. She stood on the platform, hand in hand with a man whose face I couldn't quite make out. He wore the quiet strength of someone who knew hardship, the gentle understanding of a soulmate. They laughed, their faces illuminated by a shared joy that pierced me like a shard of ice. She caught my eye, just for a fleeting moment, a flicker of recognition, a ghost of a smile, but it was quickly gone, replaced by a polite, almost distant acknowledgement. The kind you offer a stranger, the kind that seals a door forever. They boarded the train, disappearing into the brightly lit carriages, swallowed by the promise of a future I would never share. The whistle blew, a mournful cry that echoed my own despair. The carriages lurched. The train began to move. I stood there, rooted to the spot, as the distance widened between us. A voyeur in my own life, watching the credits roll on a movie I had only dreamed of starring in. The snow began to fall again, each flake a tiny, icy reminder of the dreams that were melting away. She wasn't waiting for me. She remembered me. Yes, but that memory was a faded photograph tucked away in a drawer, a reminder of a moment in time, not a foundation for a future. She had moved on. She had built a life filled with purpose, with love, with a husband who stood beside her, ready to face the world. A life that had no place for the lonely bookstore owner who still clung to the what-ifs of a snowy Prague platform. The train gathered speed, its red tail lights receding into the darkness, carrying her away, carrying my dreams away, carrying the last vestiges of hope away. I was alone again, more alone than ever. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rhythmic clang of the departing train and the agonizing beat of my own broken heart. I closed my eyes. The wind howled, but what if, just what if, I looked down? The harsh fluorescent lights of the station bled into the swirling snow, painting the scene in a sterile, almost surgical glow. And under that cold light, I saw her. Not the ghost of memory, not the phantom of regret, but Anna, embarking, disappearing once more into the steel embrace of a departing train. But this time, it was different. She wasn't alone. He was tall, handsome in a way I never could be, his arm a possessive arc around her waist, her laughter, the melody that had haunted my solitary evenings for years, now danced freely on the frigid air, harmonizing with his. It was a sound that should have brought me joy, knowing she was happy, knowing she was loved, but it felt instead like a shard of ice piercing my heart, a final, definitive punctuation mark on a story that was never meant to be. I watched them board. Each step she took onto that train felt like a step further away from me, a severance of the invisible threads that had tethered me to this moment, to this city, to this fantasy, because that's all it had been, hadn't it? A beautiful, elaborate, self-constructed fiction woven from a single shared glance, a half-remembered conversation, and the desperate longing of a lonely soul, the what-ifs that had been my constant companions, the spectral whispers that haunted the quiet corners of my bookstore finally began to dissipate, not with a bang, but with a slow, agonizing exhale. They had sustained me, these fragile possibilities, given my existence a purpose, however illusory. Now, they were simply gone, like smoke in the wind. The train hissed, a mechanical sigh that mirrored my own. It was a monstrous beast, a metal leviathan swallowing my dreams whole. Through the frosty windows, I saw their silhouettes, two figures intertwined, bathed in the warm, inviting glow of the carriage lights. They were a world unto themselves, a universe I could never penetrate, and then, a moment of brutal clarity. Anna wasn't waiting for me. She hadn't been waiting for me all these years. My grand, romantic quest, my desperate race against time, had been a fool's errand, a delusion fueled by loneliness and regret. She remembered me, yes, the musician had confirmed that, but as a pleasant memory, a fleeting encounter, a chapter closed long ago. The reality crashed down on me like the Prague snow-cold, unforgiving absolute. My chance was truly gone. The door had slammed shut, bolted, and cemented over. There would be no miraculous reunion, no whispered confessions, no second chance at love. A wave of something akin to acceptance began to wash over me, a bittersweet tide that eased the burning ache in my chest. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was a letting go, a surrender to the inevitable. And I was happy, truly happy. And who was I to begrudge her that? Who was I to demand she sacrifice her joy for the sake of my own selfish desires? The train lurched, its wheels screaming against the tracks. It began to pull away, slowly at first, then with increasing momentum, carrying Anna and her husband towards some distant horizon, toward a future that I would never share. The colored lights of the carriages blurred into long streaks of red, green and white. I watched it recede into the twilight, the taillights shrinking to pinpricks in the gathering gloom. The platform, once a stage for my desperate drama, now felt vast and empty. The swirling snow seemed to mock me, dancing in the void left by her departure. But amidst the grief, a flicker of something new began to emerge, a fragile seed of hope pushing through the frozen earth. If Anna was free to chase her dreams, to find happiness in a life I wasn't a part of, then perhaps I could do the same. Perhaps I could finally turn the page, close the book on this chapter, and begin to write a new one. The bookstore awaited. The city beckoned, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a stirring of something other than regret, something akin to possibility. The weight of the past, the burden of unspoken words, began to lighten ever so slightly. I looked down at my hands, calloused and worn from years of handling books, and saw not the marks of a lonely existence, but the potential for creation, the potential for a new story. What tale could a man write when he finally released the ghost of what might have been, when he finally looked up and forward? I had the faintest notion it wouldn't be anything like the one he dreamed of. The whistle faded, a mournful echo in the Prague twilight, a finality I hadn't anticipated. The steam billowed, ghosts released into the frigid air, mirroring the spectral hopes that had clung to me just moments before. She was gone. My chance, whatever imagined version of it existed, had pulled away on those tracks, receding into the horizon. The harsh reality settled, cold and heavy, a stone in my chest. I watched the taillights shrink, each flicker a diminishing spark of what could have been. The platform emptied, the bustling urgency replaced by a desolate quiet that amplified the drumming of my own heart. I stood there, a monument to longing, a statue carved from regret, then a flutter, a small rectangle of color, dancing on the wind, spiraling down like a lost feather. It landed near my feet, nestled amongst the swirling snow. I knelt, my fingers clumsy with cold, and picked it up. It was a postcard, hand-painted. The Prague astronomical clock, its ancient gears and celestial symbols rendered in delicate detail. A familiar image, painfully familiar. My heart stuttered. A ghost of recognition brushed against my soul. It was like the ones I had given her years ago, the ones I still sold in my bookstore, each a tiny portal to a memory I had both cherished and cursed. I turned it over, my breath catching in my throat. Words, scrawled in elegant cursive, filled the small space. A message, a whisper across time and distance. Thank you for the memory. The words swam before my eyes, blurring with a sudden, unexpected rush of tears. A single drop escaped, tracing a hot path down my cheek, a testament to the tangled mess of emotions swirling within me, for giving me the courage to chase my dreams. Courage. Did she really mean that? That our fleeting encounter, that brief connection on this very platform, had somehow fueled her ambitions, propelled her forward. It seemed impossible, absurd, yet the words were there, undeniable. And then, the final line, the one that resonated deepest, the one that shattered the remaining fragments of my carefully constructed delusion. Anna, just her name, a simple signature, yet it held the weight of untold stories, of a life lived, a path chosen, a life that wasn't mine. A faint smile touched my lips, a bittersweet acknowledgement of the absurdity of it all. I had spent years searching for a ghost, chasing a phantom limb of a relationship that never truly existed. I had clung to the hope of finding her, of rewriting our story, only to discover that she had already written her own. And in that story, I was but a fleeting character, a catalyst, not the hero. But perhaps that was enough. Perhaps my role wasn't to be her destiny, but to be a whisper in her ear, a spark that ignited a flame. Perhaps in some small way, I had contributed to the vibrant tapestry of her life, even if I wasn't meant to be a permanent thread. I closed my eyes, the postcard clutched loosely in my hand. The cold wind whipped around me, carrying the scent of snow and distant coal fires. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with the crisp air, and exhaled slowly, releasing the breath I had been holding for years. I opened my hand, letting the postcard go. It danced on the wind again, a fleeting butterfly of memory, before drifting away, disappearing into the gathering darkness. I turned, my boots crunching on the snow-covered platform. I walked away from the tracks, away from the ghosts of what might have been, toward the dim glow of the city lights. Sometimes it's not about finding the person, but about the person you become in the search. And sometimes the greatest love stories are not the ones that are written, but the ones that inspire. But what becomes of a story when it only exists in memory?